Okay, I think we're ready to get started. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to welcome you to the final stop of the Okaeri Letters to Home book tour. I'm Debbie Kubota, and I'm a member of this temple, the Honpa Hongwanji Hawaii Betsuin. First of all, I'd like to provide a brief history of how the Hongwanji got so involved with the LGBTQ community. I am the chair of the Hongwanji's Commission on Buddhist Education, and a few years ago, back in 2022, the Commission wanted to develop some educational brochures to illustrate how Buddhism would be able to be helpful through everyone's life journeys and guide people through the different phases of life. We thought of doing some brochures about different life situations, such as Buddhism and parenting, Buddhism and bullying, Buddhism and end of life. But in the meantime, we heard that some of our Buddhist youth who were members of the Junior Young Buddhist Association were struggling with their gender identity and sexual orientation and challenges of coming out. So we decided, as a group, we wanted to support them and show them that the Hongwanji supported their life journey. So we decided to come up with brochures, and the first one is called Buddhism and Coming Out. So this was our initial attempt to put together some resources and support for our Buddhist youth. And this weekend, I'm pleased to announce that we have our second follow-up brochure, which is called So Now What? And this is actually for parents, friends, and allies of those in the LGBTQ community to provide resources and support. So we have copies of these two brochures in the back table, so feel free to take as many as you'd like for yourself and for others to share the Buddhist teachings and show our support. We actually have had 3 previous workshops to show our members and educate them about the LGBTQ community. The first one was featuring our moderator today, Cameron Miyamoto. He did an LGBTQIA plus 101, just explaining what all the letters of the acronym mean. And we also had one that featured Reverend Koe Umezu from Southern California to talk about how Buddhism supports being all-inclusive and welcoming to anyone. And then our last one was last year, Kagiri Naki Ai Tojihi, featuring Aiden Izumi and his mom, Marcia, and 2 other members of the community, Bill Kaneko and Sabrina McKenna, who actually were on a panel for us. So, and this is our 4th one. So today I'm very, very excited that we are presenting this Letters to Home book tour event. About a year ago, Marcia Izumi had approached me to ask if we were willing to host this book tour event. So I'm so happy to have this come to reality today. And we have our wonderful panelists who are all contributors to this Okaeri book, Letters to Home, and our wonderful moderator, Cameron Miyamoto, who is the director of the LGBTQ Center at UH Manoa, as well as the president of PFLAG Honolulu. So I'd like to turn things over to Keith Nishida, who will be telling a little bit more about the Letters to Home book.
Thank you, Debbie. Hello, everyone. Aloha. Aloha, Maikako. My name is Keith Nishida, he, him pronouns. I guess I won't do the introduction right now, but I want to say thank you all for being here and supporting your loved ones and friends. I just want to first start by thanking the Honpa Hongwanji Hawaii Betsuin and the Honolulu Hongwanji Council for getting Aiden and I here from Los Angeles. So give it up for them. Thank you. Also, I want to say thank you to Debbie for all the work and being our liaison to make this happen for all of us, as well as Dr. Cameron Miyamoto for moderating us and also holding the fort at University of Hawaii for a very long time for the LGBTQ Center. So thank you all for holding space for all of us today. I want to briefly mention a little bit about Okaeri first. If you don't know, Okaeri, O-K-A-E-R-I, Okaeri means welcome home or welcome back in Japanese. And it's really truly the essence of how our organization, the ethos of why our organization started back in 2013 when a Nikkei, Japanese American mother of a trans son, this is her son, was struggling through balancing her religious and spiritual belief and also wanting to be there for a mother, as a parent, as a family member of her trans son who came out and needing that support. And so, you know, at every work that we do, at the center of it all is the love, undying, supportive love for her child. And so we carry that for over a decade, and we're based in Los Angeles, but like what I like to say is that we're based in LA, but our impact is global. We have a lot of our allies, not only in Hawaii, but also in all across North America, Canada. We also have people who are interested in our work in Peru, of all places, and of course Japan. Just really quickly, our vision is to create a safe, loving, and accepting world for our LGBTQ Nikkeis and their family members, as well as our allies out there. And really looking for a place to be respected, celebrated, and embraced. And I think more than ever before, at this time of where we are as a nation, I think it's really important that we work towards not only celebrating, especially outside of the month of June, but also embracing and loving our LGBTQ family members. So I'll close by saying that. And should I talk a little bit about the book? May I? So the book, Letters to Home, back in 2022, we had a leadership gathering in 2022, and that was outside of the wake of the height of COVID. And as you may remember, we were all isolated and feeling really lonely and feeling disconnected from our community. And so when it was safe for us to kind of convene again in person, we had a meeting in 2022, and we're thinking about how can we stay connected to each other, right? And one of the ways that we do is to share stories. And we thought, why don't we just put our stories into books? And then so that way, you know, even though we're not always connected, we have that book as a way to, you know, relate. No matter how different our stories may be, we find similarities as well. And so that was the start of it in 2022. And we had our collaborators, Cody Ueda, who is one of our editors, as well as Rino Kodama and Michael Matsuno, who are our co-editors, and Daniel Tomita as our designer. And so the four of them kind of worked hard for 2 years on this work. So it's a labor of love, as you can imagine. And we had over 50, I believe, over 50 contributors in this one book. So there must be something in the book that you can probably relate to on some level. So we're really excited and hope that you'll get a copy of the book. And I should probably tell this at the end too, but I was just told if you live near Kaimuki area, there is a bookstore called Da Shop, D-A-S-H-O-P, Da Shop in Kaimuki, that will be holding copies of our book as well. So please go support your local business, and it's also available through Amazon for the book as well. So that's a little bit about our book, and we'll take our turns to introduce ourselves next.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. Aloha, everyone. Aloha. I am Cameron Miyamoto. He, him pronouns, and I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon. I'm going to be talking with you in conversation with 4 contributors to the book, Letters from Home. So all the folks here have pieces in this amazing book. We're going to have a brief panel discussion and open it up for Q&A, and then we're going to have refreshments and a book signing after. There are some books for sale at the table, at the Okairi table, so that will be following.
And free stickers. So
Yes,
please
free
take the
stickers.
stickers so I don't have to take them home.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and get started. I want to invite our panelists, if you could please introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, where you're from, whatever that means to you, and what piece you wrote.
I feel like because I just talked, is that okay? She's awesome.
So my name is Jessica Kawamura. I use primarily she pronouns, but they pronouns are all right too. I was born and raised in California and I've lived in multiple places, but I've called Oahu home for the last 6+ years, and I have family roots here, Japanese plantation roots. My piece in the book is entitled Finding Community, Building Community.
Thank you, Jessica. Aloha, everyone. I'm Jill Guillermo Tagawa. I am Kama'aina. I'm from here, live in Mauna Lua now. My grandparents were from Kauai, and I use she, they pronouns. And I contributed 2 pieces, one called My Aloha and the other entitled Meetings at the Shore that I'll read later. Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
I think Keith and I are sharing this one. Hi, everyone. My name is Aiden Izumi. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm born in Japan, adopted, live in the Los Angeles area. I'm a trans man, and I'm happy to be back here again, although I am solo this year. So it's a little different, but sending love home to my mom. And the piece I wrote is called What is Pride?
Hi, everyone, again. Keith Nishida, he, him pronouns. I consider myself as a proud Shin Nisei, Japanese American, born and raised in Los Angeles, to some Japanese-speaking parents, and proud to be bilingual as well. And I wrote my poem that starts on page 115. Are some Japanese poems, 5 poems to be exact, so hope I can share one of those today.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks, everyone. Our first question is, what motivated you to respond to the call to write a piece for Letters to Home? Keith, would you like to get us started?
Yes. What motivated me? What I didn't say is that I am a former executive director for Okairi, this organization. I'm very proud to serve as the second, because Marcia Izumi being our first founder and executive director. So because I was on staff, I kind of felt obligated to be like, okay, I guess I should contribute something to the book. Okay, here goes nothing. I'm not a trained poet by any means, but I felt like writing is very cathartic for some of us. It's like writing a journal at times, and for me, writing a poem in Japanese was a way to honor my parents and where we came from. But in a lot of ways, when poems are really short and have to be concise in the words of your language. So I thought it was like a fun way to really express myself, and that's one of the reasons why I think Okairi is very important, because it's the biggest and only organization in all of North America to not only be doing this work, but also holding space for both English and Japanese speaking individuals, parents, and family members. So I thought that was why I wanted to contribute my piece.
That's interesting. I actually had no real intentions also of contributing, but my mom was very encouraged. I guess she was really encouraging when it came to like trying to maybe submit something. And I think in my head I thought like, well, I don't want to submit something, and then people are like, oh, it got picked because Marsha's your mom. And so I kind of had just ignored the email call that went out that said, looking for folks to contribute. But my mom was like, I think you should, if you're comfortable, she'll always say that though, like, but if you're comfortable, I think it would be nice. So I ultimately was motivated by that, but also I think I've been trying to be more intentional about connecting to my Japanese American like identity and community, and I felt like this was a good a way to do that, or kind of start that process. So.
My sole, I think, reason for contributing is Stan Yogi, who was one of the founders of Okaidi, and he's a longtime friend and supporter of my organization, Purple Moon. He asked me if I would consider contributing something to the book. I've been a supporter of Okaidi at a distance from here, and I felt very honored to be asked for something by Stan. That's why. So.
I think for me it was a very intentional decision in a personal way. It's a way for me to help stay connected with the Japanese American community on the continent where I'm from. But I also really wanted to challenge myself to share my story publicly, both for my own journey, but also with the hopes that it would help other people on their journey as well.
Thanks, everyone. Can you give us a brief overview of what your piece is about, or share a short excerpt from your piece?
Okay, I'll go first. We were fighting about the order in which we're going to sit, and I was like, oh, I'm it. So I'm going to read my poem in Japanese, and I'll explain a little bit about what it means. So one of my favorite ones, here it goes. 風香る月下美人に虹かかり、ほもかな香り、八方美人. So this one talks about a flower that only blooms at night. Does anybody know what it, like, I think it's called, what's it called? Yeah, yes. And as you may know, this flower blooms at night in the darkness, and by morning it shrivels back. And I felt like that was a great analogy about how I've felt for a very long time, of only in the privacy of my own self did I feel like I can bloom and be truly who I am and how I felt and who I was attracted to and how I identified. And when day comes, I felt like I had to conform. And, I think this is where maybe a lot of JAs, and especially those who have experienced being incarcerated in internment camps, especially feel that, being forced into feeling like you're not accepted by your own home called America, or to be forced and assimilated, right? Living a life of assimilation. I do feel extra, like being born queer. I really felt like I had to assimilate into mainstream culture, and this poem speaks to the pride of having the rainbow also as an analogy, and feeling like I need to, like, put on a good face and be all shiny and bright like the rainbow, but also at the same time feeling like that flower and not feeling like I truly can be and blossom into who I am during the daytime or in the light. So that's the best interpretation I can give in English. But yes, I also, this is the first piece that I ever wrote and published in my pen name. So it's been pretty significant that I got to do that and to do it through Okaidi. So yeah, I'm very grateful. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thanks, Keith.
Okay, I was like, let me reread the question because I was so like just listening to what you were saying. So for me, I won't read mine, but the poem itself is called "What Is Pride," and I think originally when I was writing this down, I kind of grew up with the idea that I felt like pride was maybe a bad thing to have, and that we shouldn't be proud in that way because it wasn't, I guess, becoming. It was not very JA. And so I kind of, I think, really struggled with that, finding a sense of pride and also like my identity, and really figuring out who I was and not shying away or like hiding that part of myself, but also, learning to like embrace these different parts. But within it, I like kind of break down different ways that I kind of like what pride is for me. And part of it was also to pay tribute to folks who had come before, who like paved the way for LGBTQ plus folks, but also acknowledging that there's still a lot of work that has to be done, and that finding pride for me and for other folks too, whatever that looks like for them, is kind of what we have to keep doing to be able to move forward, to be able to be authentically ourselves. And hopefully, that will come with more acceptance and more love, and not interpreting pride as a bad thing.
My first piece, My Aloha, was something that I wrote. It's like a poem. As I was preparing the last work that I made to present in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, before I moved back home in 2012. And it was a chance for me, so it accompanied a dance that I was choreographing. And it was a time when I was really thinking about what it meant to come home. I had been living in California for off and on for between 20 and 30 years at that point. It was a very big step for me. I felt very fearful in some ways. I had not really lived here as an adult. And some of the reason I think that I did stay as long as I did is I did find community among queer and API queer folks. So it was that. And the other piece, because of the theme of Okaidi and this book of coming home, inspired me to think about coming out to my mom again. And I will read that piece. It's not too long as we go around again.
So my piece is actually a lot about navigating what the meaning of home has meant to me. So I turned 40 just a couple of months ago, and I've been in Hawaii now for 6 years, but moved around a lot in my 20s and 30s. And I guess the question to me is, what does home mean for me? And so I'm thinking that's a lot of what my my piece is about, is negotiating what that means to me as a queer person and as a Japanese American person with family roots here, but someone who's not native Hawaiian and didn't grow up here.
Okay, for each of you, how does your background as LGBTQ plus and being of Japanese heritage influence your sense of self, place, spirituality, and community?
We like this. We like this flow. Okay.
You got it, Keith.
Okay. Well, I also, like Jessica, was born and raised on the continental U.S. But I'm very fortunate enough that when I was 18, I came to Oahu and attended the University of Hawaii Manoa. Go Bows! Anybody? Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, I was fishing for it. Yes, I was fishing for everybody to be like, go Bows. Also, my sister is here. She also went to the University of Hawaii. And thanks for supporting me. So, that sense of, in terms of place, and it was a huge shift for me to come to Hawaii, even though it was very familiar places. And I know that people here are ever loving in the spirit of aloha. But it wasn't until I moved out here that I really felt a sense of the spirit of aloha, and I carry that wherever I go. And I moved a lot of different places since then, but that has been the constant for me in my life. And so I think it's all important that we hold on to our values, even though we physically may be moving to different places. But specifically for the piece that was in Letters to Home as well, I think my identity as Japanese American, instinctually I felt, and queer at the same time, I've learned at a very young age to, again, assimilate to wherever I am for my own safety. Because I learned very young, at the very young age, that it was not safe to be who I am, unfortunately, in this world. In how I was bullied, and how adults talk about other gay, queer, trans people on TV or on the radio, or wherever else in media. And so at a very young age, I've learned how to hide myself. And I think, historically looking at what happened to the Japanese American community, that sense of assimilation existed, right? That we had to be pushed into camps and forget the mother language, right? Historically, that it's not okay to be Japanese. You should be American first, right? And not speak Japanese at home and forget your cultural roots or your practices and whatnot. You need to assimilate to American culture. So in that sense, with all due respect, right, to what our Japanese American communities have experienced, it's nothing compared, but in some ways I can relate, right? That sense of assimilation, that it's not safe to be who you are. And that's why my poem talks about shriveling in the daylight, like that flower, and only blossoming at night. Yeah.
This one is tough because I think about how I processed my own identity when I came out in high school, and I think that there was a part of me that felt like I had to choose between being Japanese American or being a queer or trans person. This fly is going to be the death of me. And I realized that those things can't actually happen, right? I can't actually separate these parts of my identity. And I think there was this part of me that growing up felt like I needed to do that. So when I would go to the temple that my brother played basketball out of, I was there as this Japanese American at the time daughter, And then I would go to events at the LGBT Center in LA, and it was like, I was probably the only Japanese person there, so I was really like there for my identity as a trans person. And so I think what's hard is that over time I've learned that I want to be able to exist in spaces where both my identities are seen. So spaces like this, or going to Okaidi, or being able to have all of my identities, I think, present in a room. But for a long time I felt like that wasn't possible, that was like, I was either one or the other, which realistically wasn't happening, but in my brain it made sense that way. And I think it's what made me realize like the importance of having community spaces like this, or where I'm not feeling like I have to leave a part of myself behind, and being able to really embrace myself as a whole person, and not just, again, these like little aspects of who I am and my identity.
There's a lot, I agree, in this question, and we were given these questions to think about. So what I want to say is, for me, it's kind of the reverse. I think that my family, especially, has given me so much of my background. And I thought the last few days, sometimes I feel my family did not have that much influence on me as a queer person. But I've realized, thinking about it, that, and I want to acknowledge my grandfather, who was an activist, who spoke up in the concentration camp that he was incarcerated in, fought for justice and rights of the community he was living with in Heart Mountain and Jerome camps. My dad, who often told me as I was growing up to fight back and to not let anyone bully me. My cousin brother Mike, who was one of the founders of GARP, Gay Asian Rap Group in Los Angeles, and he died of AIDS in the 1990s during that epidemic. So I realized that I continue them, and they have given me a lot of strength, I think, and always my mother, who I will read about, to be okay with myself as I was coming out, even though I wasn't always sure how they would support me. But though I don't say it in my piece, I do want to acknowledge my dad, who was Nisei, and for the support that I think he really worked to remember that he wanted me to be happy. It was one of the first things he told me when I came out to him, or asked me, "Are you happy?" And when I said I was, he said, "That's what is important to me." And I'm very grateful to him for that, because I know had many other friends whose families did not, had more difficulty coming to an understanding. So, yeah, thank you.
So much of what they've shared really resonates deeply with me. What I was reflecting upon, particularly about being Japanese and American and being queer, is the ways that the complexity of those identities has really made my personal life, my spiritual life, my community life very, very rich. I grew up in the Japanese American community in the Bay Area. So most of my peers were mixed racially and ethnically. Our community crossed borders across the Hongwanji and the Christian congregations. There were people who, of different generations, so people who are, I grew up with kids adopted from Japan, whose parents were from Japan. And so just so much diversity that really made me open to different sorts of people from different experiences, being open to learning, having an open mind, and really, again, standing up for justice, especially when folks are getting bullied or, taken advantage of.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing this rich tapestry of experiences around being queer, trans, and Japanese American or Japanese ancestry. It's amazing how many different unique experiences there are and all the different themes that come with it. To go a little deeper, I was wondering if you could please reflect on your childhood and your personal journey of self-acceptance, what that looked like.
Okay, this is like therapy session now. Childhood, oof, yeah. I think I also want to reflect on what Jessica mentioned earlier about like this process of learning, and I think that's been a big part of my life since I was young. But learning in a different way, right? Learning with the objective of going to a good school, which I did, University of Hawaii Manoa, for my undergrad. But it was like very goal-oriented, yeah? Which is like learning to get to this point. But I think acceptance, right, is an ever, like, kind of almost like amorphic, right? It's like accepting someone can look very differently for each person, each family, depending on your culture too. So in that aspect, like I think I've been striving even into, way into my adulthood about learning to accept myself. And like many people, I think I looked outwards for acceptance, yeah? I was looking to be acknowledged and accepted, but realizing that it has to come from me first. And so actually joining the Okaidi team about 5 years ago has really helped with that journey in tapping into this amazing community that is international and most certainly all across the nation. So that definitely helps in terms of my self-acceptance and learning about myself as much as learning about other people and sort of comparing notes, essentially. So I just want to reflect on what you were saying earlier about it's an iterative process in terms of self-acceptance, but also accepting other people within our community because we are very different. We are all united probably in a lot of ways, whether it be at the Nikkei Japanese American level or being part of the queer trans community, but we each are unique. And I like to think that we each have our own cultures, each within us, in our own unique upbringing and our way of life. So I think it's a lifelong process to learn each other and learn through each other. And for that, I'm very thankful that I've been doing that work with Okaidi.
It is kind of like therapy. Childhood. Oh, gosh. Okay. It's interesting because I think Keith kind of mentioned this too about the messages that we hear growing up or from the people in our lives, whether that's our peers or adults or teachers or our families. And I was thinking about the first time somebody asked me if I was a boy or a girl. I was in first grade. And I can remember it exactly because I was in the bathroom, and I can picture the elementary school bathroom. Like it's really just one of those things that stuck with me because it was so uncomfortable. I didn't know really why someone was asking me this. I was like 6 years old, But I knew that that feeling that I had when they asked me that was something I didn't really want to like replicate. And so I think my process for coming to accept myself was sort of stunted or delayed because of trying to fit in or try to assimilate or try to just fly under the radar, because I didn't like the way that felt when they asked me. And I think on some level, partly too, because there was like something to that I didn't know how to name. I didn't really understand my own identity, but I knew that there was like, well, that's weird. Like, how do they know something about me that I don't know really about myself? But as a kid, I also wrote some like poem my mom found. My mom keeps a lot of stuff. I don't know if other parents do this. Like, you know, the turkey, like a handprint, painting, like macaroni necklaces. My mom kept a lot of that stuff. But when she moved, my parents had moved out of our childhood home. We got rid of some of this. She made her peace with it, and we took pictures, and she can keep those. But there was like a poem she found that's about, it was like all the things I would do if I was a boy. And basically the whole poem is like I would do everything the same except for I'd be a boy. But I was like maybe in 3rd grade when I wrote it. And so I didn't come out as a trans man until I was 20. So that's a really long delay, right? And I think that process of self-acceptance for me was sort of trying to battle the messages that I had heard from the people in my life and the people in my community. And my church, I did not go to an accepting church. They would never fly a progress flag out on a pole. So I think it was a lot of me trying to battle the messages that I had heard growing up to finally find a place that I felt comfortable and safe enough to be able to come out and accept myself. So.
I'm going to answer the question by reading my piece called Meetings at the Shore. The Pacific Ocean separated me from my island home for decades. Sometimes when I missed it too intensely, I wished I could swim home. And while I chose to stay on the other shore, I never stopped yearning for simple things with my mom. An impromptu dinner or a drop-in visit, a movie, admiring a flower in bloom, were all luxuries that remained out of reach. I finally lived near my mother again, and 10 years later, I am still steeping in her sageness and care, small, everyday acts of love expressed through the newspaper she saves for me, savoring peering mangoes together, her refusal to leave a store without a small treat for my child, attending to the evolving ways she needs me as I once needed her, is the loftiest privilege. Last month, we sat across the glass table from each other on her lanai and launched on her favorite beet poke with butternut squash dal and rice. So far away in my mind now, almost as though belonging to a different young person, was our brief talk in her living room on the evening more than 40 years ago when I was home from New York and so anxious to share my new understanding of myself. My straight roommate had told me another dancer I admired was lesbian, and with that small comment, unknowingly handed me the first blossom of a lei I began stringing, made of all my childhood crushes, years of feeling drawn to women and desires I had not had a name for. When it was complete, it was fragrant with awakening, and I wanted to wear it everywhere. And of course, show it to my mother. Before I flew to her that unforgettable evening, I had already walked the streets of Greenwich Village, discovering the gay bookstore with books by other lesbians whose stories I craved, and entered a lesbian bar for the first time, knowing it as a kind of homecoming, though I was the only Asian woman in the place. I felt full of promise of all that was yet to come for me. My mother had told me I could be and do anything I wanted. And now I truly felt there would be space for me anywhere I wanted to go. I remember my surprise then when my ever-supportive mom did not admire my lei or share my exhilaration. quietly stating she would need some time. What do you need time for? Wondered my youthful, impatient self. But although my mom is Sansei and I could speak more directly with her than my Nisei father, as a respectful child, I tried to swallow my disappointment. Now, more than 40 years later, I was coming out to her again, this time for her youngest grandchild. My voice softened as I told her how much I did not want my child to hurt. On that summer day, she did not look down. I gazed at her as she collected her resolve, and it was as if she outstretched her arms, offering the protection and acceptance I had wanted from her so long ago. These moments become one. The warm refuge my mother is for my transgender child is my refuge too. My child has a grandma who sees and embraces them with a fierce, wise love. I have a cherished photograph of them as they walk away from me together. My child at 16 is strong enough now to support their grandma if she falters. When they go for their daily walk, they tell each other about their day. Grandma mostly listens, and grandchild is a lookout for bumps and unexpected outside danger. They know they are there for each other. When I sat in my own home on the red sofa inherited from my dad, and my child came out to my wife and I as trans, in a single moment, I felt myself standing on that shore where I could greet my mother and my child in myself. As children, we want and ask and want more for ourselves. But as parents, our hearts sprout endless tendrils of generosity, and we want and ask mostly for our children. Surprisingly, a peace resonant and deep is present since I came out to my mother again. Mom, okage-sama de. My mother is here today, and she just turned 94 on Sunday, and I'm so blessed, really, to still have her in my life.
So the question was to reflect on our childhood and personal journey of self-acceptance. I guess I'd start to say that I think I'm still definitely on my journey of self-acceptance, but it's really been a lifelong journey. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 1990s and 2000s in a context where mainstream culture was more LGBT affirming than in other places. But at the same time, of course, there's homophobia and discrimination, and the language around gender identity and sexual orientation were not as evolved as they are today. So I think growing up, I generally had a sense that there were lesbian and gay people in our family or in our community, and that was okay. But I didn't necessarily know how to place my own identity kind of within a more black and white binary. So even though I was aware of my queerness, I think at a young age, like other folks shared, I didn't come out kind of privately to my friends and family until I was in college. And I didn't embrace queer like as an identity until I was probably in my early 30s. So it's been a slow burn and an ongoing journey for me.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I mean, I'm the director of an LGBTQ center, and I knew I was gay at 5, but I came out in my second year of college. No, my second senior year of college.
What? What? Say that again?
My second senior year of
Okay,
college.
okay, got it. Okay.
Because I was just so drama, I had to leave and realize, oh my gosh, I'm not depressed, I'm gay. And things fell into place for me. And for me, that's kind of like a journey of self-acceptance. And it was like having to listen and to defuse all these things that I assumed were going to be awful, because I remembered stories and jokes that my dad and grandpa would make on the Japanese side. And I was like, oh, they're going to throw me out of the house. And I just was so scared of that. And none of that happened. And that makes me think about Okairi and Welcome Home and the title and the mission of Okairi and Welcome Home, and how important that is to me as a person who's queer Japanese American, because family is so central. My community is so central. Being queer Chicano Pinoy Yonsei is so central. All of it, you know? But it's like, next question.
I love how he was weaving that in.
Yeah. A unifying theme throughout this book is finding a sense of home. So that was my segue, finding a sense of home, whether through family, country, community, or cultural history. How are you able to develop and or accept your sense of home in your piece?
Cam, I want to thank you for sharing your story as well, really briefly. There's a story there. And I think that really helps you with your work, right, at Manoa for many years. And as you were talking about that, I actually recognized that, unfortunately, when your home, like your physical home where you were maybe born or raised as a kid, isn't a safe space, it's okay to find another home temporarily for your safety, for your psychological or physical safety. And that could be church, that could be a temple, or a group of people, and that people can define their home in many different ways, as clearly we probably do define that differently. But I also want to share that Hawaii is significant to me because I respectfully consider Hawaii as my second home, because when I moved here at 18, I did seek salvage in this new home state of mine. And for that, I'm forever grateful. I mentioned about the spirit of aloha, but really it was a healing process for me when I was 18. And sorry, I'm getting emotional here, but yeah, it was like a very pivotal moment to actually be away from my home in California to seek salvage here in the state of Hawaii and going to UH and really exploring myself in a safer environment. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. So that's why I consider Hawaii as my second home. So thank you for inspiring me to talk about that, about how I define home is where your heart is, right? Or at least IKEA wants you to think so. IKEA wants you to think home is where your heart is, and also where you build your furniture. But it is kind of true. Home is where your heart is, but you take your heart wherever you feel is safe. And I really hope that we can all build that home, not only for yourself, but for people, your loved ones, because I think they deserve it. They deserve to live in a home that's safe and accepting, and somewhere that they feel seen and heard. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
I was also going to say something about home is where your heart is, because I feel like to a degree that's true for me. I'm very blessed that my parents were open and willing to learn what it meant for me to be a trans person, and what that meant for them to be the parents of a trans person, and how that also impacted their social networks and lives and the people that they interacted with. And so that home for me was, it developed into a much safer place as they got to understand more. But I also feel like for me, it is something that I take with me wherever I go, and there are places that I find safe, like in spaces like this, and when I've had the great privilege to be able to speak to other folks around the country. And then I think about places like the church that I grew up in that was not accepting and not affirming, and how I had invested what I felt like was my heart into that space, and it was not met with the same sort of acceptance and love. And so I think as much as it is where the heart is, it is about safety too, and acceptance, and feeling that there is a level of me being authentic in a space, and it being met with open arms. And so I think, it is where my heart is, but also there's a safety aspect to it, and wanting to protect that because of things that I've experienced, and rejections, and not so loving spaces. But I think specifically thinking about my piece too, that there was a part of it for me that related to trying to figure out, how finding, I think, these different parts of what I believe about myself, and where I can find those spaces that I can call home, and the people that I can call family, so that I have those places I can go and access, especially when things don't feel safe kind of right now in the world. So I definitely lean on those spaces right now because they are safe, and they are home for me, and they are welcoming. So.
I would say that in addition to what I just read about and how I am at home here and with my family, I do also feel safe and appreciate the kinds of spaces that are made in a different way, in queer spaces, in people of color or Asian spaces. I was sitting here thinking as I was listening that I do choose to practice online with a queer sangha and a people of color sangha. So there are different, I guess, ways to feel safe, sometimes safer, sometimes, things are fluid. So, yeah.
My piece in the book is really kind of me processing what home means to me, because I have such a strong sense of memory to my childhood and my home community, which was really centered around being Japanese American. But of course that home community doesn't exist the way that it did before. I am living in a different place now. So my conclusion is really that home changes. It's not a single place or a single community. And I have a friend from bowling here today, from Queer Bowling. It's one of the sports leagues are really big here in the queer community. It's been one of the places where I've found home, and really kind of left with the conclusion that we're constantly like co-creating community together.
Didn't want to leave you all hanging. Things are cool with my family now. So just wanted to say that, especially since this is being recorded. So like a loving journey with my parents. They marched with me in a pride parade here in Honolulu, so things are cool now. And it's been an amazing journey of love and support, and a lot of growth and taking risks. I wanted to close with talking about acceptance. because acceptance, community, coming home, I feel like a lot of that is what this book is about. And I was wanting to ask you all about acceptance, and I want to know, what would you like to tell members of our audience who are on their own journeys of acceptance, whether they might be LGBTQ+, or growing in their acceptance as an ally?
Ooh, there's so much. There's so much in that.
I think we still have a half hour.
Oh,
No.
yeah. No time
Just
for
joking,
mingling.
just
No, I'm
joking.
kidding. Yes, also, yeah, what's Saturdays, right? I would say, gosh, first of all, like, I'm glad that your family has accepted you and celebrate with you, which is, I would argue that, like, as an ally or as a family member, the celebration part could be the fun part, right? That we also see a lot of pictures and videos of that, but we hardly get to see really the hard work that was a predecessor to getting to the point of marching in a parade together with your queer gay son or what have you, right? So let's not forget that, like, this is not all rainbows and butterflies. Like, there is actually hard work to be done as an ally, and that's if you are considered by the community that you are an ally, right? It's one thing to, like, proclaim that, like, I'm an ally, but it's actually another thing to do the work as an ally. So let's distinguish that first, right? To be an ally, you actually have to put money where your mouth is. Is that how it goes? I mean, money is also greatly appreciated, but also, like, action. You got to put your action where your mouth is actually what I want to say about allyship, right? Is that you can't just call yourself an ally and be done with that. Yeah, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it before you get to celebrate with us as one big part community. Really quickly, I want to share two quick quotes. One is our dear Marcia Izumi. Marcia, our matriarch of the family, of the Okaidi family. Marcia shared with me in a book that she was reading. I think it's Michelle Obama's. You know her. Michelle Obama, no big deal. In her book, Becoming, apparently she wrote this in her book, and then Brene Brown, maybe some of you may know, Brene Brown also made it popular. It's this quote that says, "It's hard to hate up close." It's hard to hate up close, which really means, through personal interactions like this today, right? And dozens of other conversations that you may have one-on-one or here like a community, that through personal interaction and understanding, it makes it really difficult to maintain hatred for others, right? And Michelle herself, right, by sharing her story that she was no longer a caricature as the idol that she is, but that it was harder for people to hate her when she was able to share her story. And I think it's the same of what we're trying to do here, not only through the book, through our work at Okaidi, but in every day, the opportunity to share stories with each other makes it that much harder to hate each other. And so it's hard to hate up close is one of my favorite quotes that I'd like to share today as part of the message of what we're doing here today. And the other one is, if you consider yourself an ally, it's okay to not know and to be kind to yourself in the process. And my favorite quote for that is, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And to accept that allows for the acceptance process even more, accelerates it. So those two quotes, I want to leave you with that.
You said glitter. What did you say? Sunshine and butterflies and rainbows? I was thinking like unicorns and glitter. Yeah.
That's in the trunk of my car right now for pride.
Really? I always think too, like, of allyship as a verb. I think like it requires action, right? It requires there to be some sort of and again, it could be through marching, right, which is physical, or like monetary donations to organizations or whatever, but it does require something other than just proclaiming the name, right, of being an ally.
It's not just for straight people, too.
What? Oh yes, like we are allies to each other within sort of the alphabet mafia. Or I don't know another way to say it. There's so many letters. I think for me, what I've learned in this process, especially with working with my family and folks that, like whether in the school system, because I work as a school counselor, is just that there isn't, unfortunately for some people, there isn't a perfect guide for being an ally to the people in your lives, and that process is going to be very individual for allies in the same way that it's very individual for us as queer and trans folks to come out. So that process isn't the same. There's not just like the step-by-step guide for doing it. And so I think, finding or being patient and giving yourself that grace to figure out what that looks like for you is really part of that process, because it isn't going to be the same. There might be common things, but it's not going to be this step-by-step guide of like, step 1, you're going to do this, and step 2, you are going to throw handfuls of glitter into the air and celebrate the people in your life. It's just not, unfortunately, as simple as that. And so I really encourage folks to, one, be kind to themselves, but also to explore what that looks like for you, because it is going to be different. So.
I like what you said, Keith, about, or what Michelle Obama said, about hard to hate up close. I think a good place to start as an ally, however we see ourselves as allies, is with people close to us, because they are easier to see. I think probably the most important part of allyship is love. And it's easier for us to remember love with people that we are close to and already love. And sometimes the questions that we may have may kind of push that aside, but we can call it back. And if the more we learn to do that, the more we can apply it as we go out as well. And I think the closest person to each of us is ourself. So, as some of us have spoken about, it always requires, and it's a life journey to get better and better at loving ourselves at whatever place that we are at. My Buddhist teacher talks about that we are home in ourself. So, yeah, that's what I have to say.
My advice to fellow folks on the journey too is to give yourself grace. Don't be so hard on yourself. I think we're all on a lifelong journey of growth, of acceptance, of loving ourselves. And I think this shows up a lot among folks with Japanese heritage. I think of our nibblings, our nieces and nephews in our family, and many of them will say to me, I don't feel enough, I don't feel Japanese enough, or I don't know enough about Japanese culture. And I know a lot of us are as part of the queer and trans community, are also on journeys related to that as well. So it's a lifelong process. We don't have to beat ourselves up.
Well, thank you, Keith. Thank you, Aiden. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you to all of you for being here in community today. Talking about love, aloha, acceptance, and home. Everyone, please give a round of applause for our panelists and to yourself. We'll now be opening the floor up for questions, and we have a microphone here for Q&A for any of our panelists.
I was taking copious notes. I'm Joey Badua Kide. In these challenging and uncertain times, I want to kind of encourage imagination and creativity. As communities face both rising hostility and rapid change, what does home for you looking towards the future? What strategies, and you kind of mentioned it, bowling, individual, collective, or policy-based can help ensure our homes and communities that they remain places of safety, belonging, and resilience, especially for those at the margin who are homeless. I mean, literally and figuratively, right? How do we protect, reimagine, and pass down the sense of home for future generations? And shout outs to P-Flag at that table. Thanks.
Does anyone want to start? Are you?
If no one wants to start, I can start.
Okay.
I think it's a combination. I think safety is of utmost importance for all of us right now, and I want to affirm that first and foremost. But I think at least for me, it's a combination of finding and creating new communities of safety. So bowling was an example of a newer community that a friend created, and that's blossoming. And then also advocating, right, in our traditional kind of institutions. I'm a United Methodist minister, kind of out of a historical Japanese American tradition, and shout out to my church folks in the audience. The work that we've done together is advocating within our traditional institutions, like the work Debbie and her folks are doing in the Hongwanji, to create intentionally safe spaces as well in our traditional institutions. So doing both, but really focusing on folks' safety though first.
I know it's not the sexiest topic, right, about like safety first, but it is true in this day and age, right? Like we cannot take that for granted at this point, right? And so doing simple, I would say like in a practical level, doing things like, yes, like visually representing, right? When Aiden and I drove up to the parking lot and seeing the progressive flag at the entrance, it was a signal to us that, okay, maybe we do feel welcomed in this at this place and the people who represent it. So that's one thing. And I think, right, Debbie and I, we were talking earlier about like the process that went into this temple, right? Not only acknowledging but putting actions to words about, okay, so what does it mean for us to be more accepting and loving of our LGBTQ individuals? Okay, so like what words would we put around it and how are we going to show for that, right? And so that does show allyship too. But more practical things like for example, at Okairi, like when we have conferences or when we have queer obon or matsuri, that we make sure that we pay for private security guards, not police, but private security guards to ensure that whoever is entering that space, right, we're vetting them as best as we can to create that environment of safety, and not like corroborating to make sure that place is as safe as we can. So something like at the practical level, things like that, I think can help with that sense of safety for our community. But also policy, again, not another sexy term, gosh, wow. But I think policy and like writing it, like putting it into word and then having that be abided by an organization or institution really does help to say we're all going to be liable, we're going to be held accountable for what is put into our bylaws or into our, our standing policies to say this is our stance on, what we're going to do for the LGBTQ community, and not dance around it, kind of on a certain level. So I think those are some practical ways in which I think, we can do that. And yes, definitely shout out to PFLAG Honolulu, was it? Oahu. PFLAG Honolulu, right? Advocacy and visibility is another way to make sure that, hey, we have people around you physically and otherwise that can help with the protection part. So yeah, I would say that. Hope that made sense. Yeah. Okay. A really good question though. Thank you. And bowling, right?
Yeah.
And bowling.
Yeah.
And there was the piece also on homelessness, and all of this comes together. And I guess just one of the things I'd say is there might be a stereotype that gay folks in particular of the LGBTQ plus community are all well off and doing fine, and things are good after marriage equality, but our young people in particular are completely overrepresented in the houseless population, nationally and in Hawaii. So if we look at all the youth shelters, LGBTQ kiddos are overpopulated in there. And when we look at it, it's because of all the health risk behavior survey data through the roof in areas of public health concern. And also a lot of it also has to do with unsafe home life. And it's logical, unfortunately, for these young people to take it under their situation to get into a place that's safer, and that might be not in a house. Yeah. I see another question.
I'm Pete. He, they pronouns, though. Bra is okay. My question is, you mentioned Okaeri had actually gone beyond national and international, so I was wondering if you could share a little bit about what that looks like in Japan, homophobia and tolerance, and maybe how that translates into the culture too, and maybe our promise and what holds us back in these communities. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Is it okay?
Yeah,
go ahead. Okay. I'm kind of representing Okaeri, so I better do it. So thank you for the question. We are very fortunate enough to have partnerships with various organizations that are based in Japan, one of which is ASTA, A-S-T-A. I think they're based in Nagoya, in the Nagoya prefecture, but really doing great work in that region of Japan. And what they specialize in actually is education and acceptance, really at the underline of it all, at the K through 12 level, which is kind of rare that they have access, that people have access to the K to 12 system, and especially in Japan, because you can imagine how strict it could be and regimentary. But so organizations like ASTA doing the work in Japan to really educate the children in the K through 12 system is great work that I want to highlight, and it actually is being done. And to the point where they're educating us here in the United States in Japanese about what it means, like the work that they're doing in Japan. And if it's not the parents or the adults, like educate them while they're young, I think is their stance, right? Like get them while they're young to love and accept each other, instead of just concentrating on the adult 18 and over. So I really appreciate the work that they're doing. In Japan, we have a saying called mite minu furi. Mite minu furi. It basically means look but don't look. Look but don't look. And maybe some of you may relate to that, to say, we see you, but we're not going to acknowledge you or see you for who you are. And I think that's still pretty prevalent there's a lot of trans and like drag queen personalities that are on TV in Japan for decades, actually. Surprisingly, for decades, there's been representation of drag queens and trans individuals who, in Japan, they referenced as new half. So there is representation in the media, but still portrayed, I think to this day, still portrayed as a caricature, as entertainment more than anything. And I think that representation in Japan definitely bleeds into the greater LGBTQ community, where we're kind of only good for parades and a good time. And so I think the work that, a lot of organizations, including ASTA, to get them, as young as possible to understand fundamental love and acceptance for humankind and each other, is the work that, I really admire that's happening in Japan right now to combat and offset what's being portrayed in the media, in Japanese media in general, and also the general Japanese culture of look but don't acknowledge. Anything else?
Okay, any other questions?
Hi, I'm a former educator. I came because I sensed way back 30-some years ago that I had some students who were challenged. But at that time, all I could do was lend a listening ear. I'm so glad that much progress has been made and there's articulation they can relate to. So thank you so much. But my hope today, with the University of Hawaii being here, and some of you saying that you had the courage to come out when you were in college or in high school, can you tell us, any of you, what's ahead academically for this cultural pivot? What can we look forward to as grandparents, as parents, as college students?
Why did you hand this to me? So slow, too, and I just took it instead of pushing it back at you. I don't know. So what is hard is I can speak to, California, ed code, but ultimately across the country right now, it's a little bit uncertain, right? We've made progress where we have curriculum and books and, there's access to more information because the internet is beautiful but also terrible, right? And at the same time, though, we're seeing a lot of attacks on K-12 education and restricting what information can be distributed to students. And so I would like to think, sort of optimistically, or if I were to dream, is that we will continue to be able to provide diverse representation in education, because that's really all that I think students, not all that they need, but having diverse representation. I don't remember seeing or hearing about queer and trans people when I was in school. That would have just helped me to know that there were other queer and trans people in the world, not, and not just me trying to figure it out on my own. So that representation and having access to it, I think, is going to be key to continuing that progress forward, right, and creating more loving and accepting young people, right, who grow up seeing there's more than one way to be a person, I guess, in the world.
Things might look bleak when we look at the national environment, politically, things we hear in the media. But I am so encouraged and excited by the students I work for at UH Manoa. They are so strong, so amazing, so intelligent, so resilient. And I continue to learn from them every day about different ways that we can continue to achieve when things are tough. Some of the things we're doing here in Hawaii, I've been working with UH and Stanford on a partnership to make sure that we can make our community safer for transgender and gender diverse young people and students. And we have an annual conference, for example, where we work to make sure that we have education for families, for young people, for educators, and for healthcare providers, so that we have a multi-pronged approach for making things better, so that we build networks of support and infrastructure. And all of that is important because it's the necessary ingredients so that the young people can achieve their dreams, their hopes, their goals, and their academic aspirations and the jobs they want. It's so interesting to see. I've been the director of the LGBTQ Center for over 20 years, and it's been exciting to see the way the opportunities for the students have expanded during that time. And that's something I'm really excited to see, the breadth of the kinds of studies and the kinds of opportunities they've had in employment and different things, where started to do things like having career fairs and things specifically for LGBTQ students in past years, where people are reaching out saying, hey, we want to have members of this community join our local organization. So it's really a different kind of place when we have businesses reaching out to different places saying, we see this community and understand that you're a vital part of what is necessary for the well-being of Hawaii. So I guess that's just a little grain of hope I wanted to share that won't necessarily make it into the media as much of other stuff. So thanks for the question.
Cam, can I ask? And the UH Manoa's LGBTQ Center isn't closing down.
No, don't start rumors.
I'm not putting it out. I'm not putting it out there. No rumors. I just want to confirm.
No, we are not closing down. Yeah, we are going solid.
No, that's great, right? That's show of proof that at least here in the state of Hawaii, we're solid.
Yeah. We're pretty solid. We're solid.
Because that's not the case, right?
And no, nationally, that is not the case. There are LGBTQ centers that are being shut down nationally. Lots of diversity centers are being shut down. We're continuing to thrive here and being able to both meet the requirements of law and policy and meeting the needs of our students. So organizations will be hosting, for example, National Coming Out Day on October 10th. Honpa Hongwanji will be there. So thank you for your support again. Thank you for all the organizations who will be there. P-Flag Oahu will be there. I don't know if folks know what P-Flag is, but it's an organization for parents, families, and friends of LGBTQ plus folks. So anyone who is on a journey of supporting and loving their kids, that's a place for you. If you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community, it's a place for you. It's a place for all of us. But table over there with Reina and Joey is P-Flag Oahu. I forgot what the question was. Sorry.
Next year, July 11th, if you guys want to put in your calendar and is interested.
That's the conference I talked about with Stanford and UH, Gender Journeys. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Cam. That's actually what I wanted you to talk about, P-Flag, because I felt that with this audience, not everyone knows what P-Flag is. So it's an open invitation for anyone to join you, correct?
Yes, it's an open invitation to join. There's information at the table. We've got free pens and fans and stickers. We even have membership forms. If you go over there and meet folks, you decide, oh my gosh, I want to go to potlucks and meetings every month. I want to be a member. Talk with Joey and Reina. They could sign you up. But there's all kinds of cool. Oh, and Celine. Talk to Celine too. Yeah, but we're just a fun group of folks who hang out every month, eat, talk, plan other things too. And get active with advocacy to make sure that things are good in Hawaii and nationally. And so that's some of the stuff we're doing for the well-being of our young people in Hawaii. Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions?
Can you tell me the dates again? The October date, coming out date, and then the July date next year. Can you just say it again?
Next Friday, October 10th, and it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Oh,
Is it Friday or Saturday?
Friday. Yeah, Saturday's the official coming out day, but doesn't work for the student calendar at UH. So we're celebrating National Coming Out Day on Friday, October 10th, at UH in the Campus Center courtyard. It should be a fun thing with about 30 different organizations, churches, social service groups, political organizations being there, a DJ, drag queen performances. So it's a lot of fun every year. The students love it. It's one of our biggest ones for the year. Yeah, thank you for being there again. And what was the date, Reina, for Gender Journeys next year? July 11th? And it takes place every year at the med school, JABSOM. There is another event that I just thought of mentioning. Should we mention Noah Rasheda?
Yes, yes. Well, next week we have a gentleman by the name of Noah Rasheda, and he is a Buddhist teacher, and he has podcasts online, but very down-to-earth gentleman who will be visiting here from the mainland. And he actually is going to be doing 3 events for us. The first one is Friday, October 10th, and it's going to be at UH Manoa. And it's going to be entitled Buddhism During Difficult Times. Then on Saturday, in this very room at 9 o'clock, he will be here to present a Nembutsu seminar for us, and that will be entitled Nurturing Nembutsu, Cultivating Awareness, from 9 to 11. And then on Sunday, he will be speaking at Honpa Hongwanji, and he will also be talking about Buddhism in difficult times there for their 9 o'clock service, and he'll be having a talk story session. So we have some exciting things coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited to be an honor to have had the chance to work with Debbie on that one too.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, I would like to give a big mahalo nui loa to our amazing panelists. Thank you so very much. Jessica, Jill, Aiden, and Keith. And to our wonderful moderator, Cam. Thank you so much. So I'd also like to give a big thank you to all of you for joining us. And we'd like to invite you to visit our tables before you go, because we have a table for P-Flag, Okaeri, and our Hongwanji with a lot of little books, stickers, and giveaways. And make sure you consider buying the Letters to Home book, because you've heard a lot about it today. And for those of you that are interested in hearing more about Aiden and his story, he will be our guest speaker tomorrow morning at our 9:30 service here at the Hongwanji. The Hongwanji Hawaii Betsuin has had an LGBTQ themed service for the past 2 years, so this is our 3rd year in a row, and it's really exciting that the Sangha and the ministers have supported our efforts with LGBTQ. So Aiden will be there giving his message and also being available afterwards for a talk story session. So please join us, 9:30 tomorrow in the main temple. So this concludes the formal part of our event today, but please feel free to stay and mingle, have some refreshments, visit our tables, and again, consider buying the Letters to Home book if you don't have a copy already. You'll be able to have our contributors sign and autograph your books for you. So with that being said, thank you again for everyone coming today and for our panelists and moderator. Thank you very much.
And thank you to Debbie Kubota.